Stolen, that is the word that arrived first, and I want to stay with it for a second before I go anywhere else, because it is a strange word to use about a heart, and also somehow the most accurate one available for what I am looking at right now. You did not ask for it. That is the thing about stealing in this particular sense, which is, of course, not stealing at all, but is called that because of how involuntary the experience is for the person it happens to. You were not running a campaign. You were not executing a strategy designed to produce this specific outcome in this specific person. You were, as best as I can read it, simply being yourself in close enough proximity to this person for long enough that something in them got completely away from them before they had the chance to make a conscious decision about whether to allow it. And now here they are, wanting with the specific inconvenient will not be reasoned with quality of wanting that arrives when it was not planned for and cannot be neatly managed back into something more controllable. Let us talk about that wanting, because it deserves a proper examination. But first, this community. I want to say something today that I do not say enough in these openings. The people who find their way to readings like this one are, as a category, people who still believe in something, despite evidence that has sometimes been mixed. Despite experiences that would have justified a much more defended posture toward the possibility of genuine connection, despite whatever this specific chapter has contained, you are still here, still curious about love, still willing to sit with a reading about someone wanting to be with you, rather than having long ago concluded that such a thing was not worth your attention. That is not naivety. That is a particular kind of courage that does not always get named as courage. Thank you for having it. Thank you for bringing it here. And welcome, as always, to anyone finding this space for the first time. You chose an interesting day to arrive. Now, the wanting. Let us get into it properly. The first thing I noticed when I sat with this, and I noticed it immediately, was the quality of how this person holds the experience of you in their mind. There is a difference, and it matters enormously in what I read, between thinking about someone and being occupied by someone. Thinking about someone is active, chosen. A person directs their attention toward a subject, spends some time there, and then redirects their attention when they are ready to move on to the next thing. Being occupied is neither active nor chosen. It is what happens when a person discovers that someone has taken up residence in their mental space without permission and without any apparent intention of vacating, simply because their continued presence is inconvenient. You have taken up residence, and this person has done what people do when they discover this has happened to them. They have tried the obvious things. They have attempted to redirect their attention. They have pursued distraction in various forms. They have probably at some point had the internal conversation where they talked quite reasonably to themselves about the various practical reasons why this level of preoccupation is disproportionate to whatever the actual situation between you currently is. None of it has worked. You are still there. In the morning, when they are doing something entirely unrelated to you. In the middle of conversations with other people, when something someone says produces an association that leads back, almost involuntarily, to you. In the specific quiet of the last few minutes before sleep, when the day's distractions have finally run out and what remains, occupying the space that is supposed to be easing toward rest, is you. This is not a passing interest. The reading is being quite clear about that, and I want to be equally clear in passing it on. What this person is experiencing in relation to you has the specific gravity of something that has moved past preference into necessity. The distinction between those two states is significant. A preference can be set aside when circumstances make it inconvenient. A necessity reorganizes itself around the circumstances rather than accommodating them. You have become a necessity for this person, and they are only beginning to fully understand what that means. Let me describe how this happened, because the how is always interesting, and in this case, I think it is specifically worth examining. It was not a single moment. I want to say that clearly because there is a romantic mythology around the moment of falling, the singular lightning strike instant of recognition that makes a good story, but that is, in my experience of reading for actual people in actual situations, considerably less common than the other kind. The other kind is accumulation, small moments layering on top of each other until the combined weight of them tips something over a threshold that no single moment could have reached alone. The specific way you said something once that lodged itself in their memory for reasons they could not immediately explain. The quality of your attention during a conversation that felt different from the quality of attention most people offer, more real somehow, more actually present. The moment you did something unexpected, not performed unexpected, but genuinely surprising in a way that revealed a dimension of you they had not seen before, and that required an update to the mental model they had been building. Each of those moments alone would have been insufficient. Together they built something. And what they built is this particular thorough, apparently immovable wanting that this person is currently navigating with varying degrees of success. Okay. Something is pulling at the edge of this reading that I want to follow before I lose it. Something about the specific quality of what you did, or more accurately, what you simply are, that produced this in them. Let me sit with it. There is an authenticity thread here that keeps coming up, and I think it is central rather than peripheral. This person has encountered, in the period of time that led them to you, or that constituted the beginning of whatever this connection is, a considerable number of people who were presenting, who were offering a curated, considered, angled version of themselves designed to produce a particular impression rather than simply to be what they actually are. And then there was you. And something in the encountering of you, after all of that encountering of presented versions registered as almost startling in its difference, not because you were performing authenticity, which is its own kind of curation and which perceptive people can feel almost immediately, but because you were simply, without apparent effort or design, real, the specific texture of a person who is not monitoring their impression while they are with you, who is not running a parallel process of assessing how they are landing, who is sufficiently present in the actual moment of the interaction that the interaction contains them rather than a representative they have sent in their place. That quality, that unremarkable to you but apparently remarkable to them quality of simply being real, is what got in. Not past their defenses exactly. That implies they were adequately defended against it. More accurately, it got in before the defenses registered what was happening. Because the defenses were calibrated for the presented versions they had learned to expect, and you arrived as something else entirely and were already resident by the time the calibration could catch up, I want to talk about what wanting to be with you actually means from inside their experience right now, because I think the phrase itself can flatten into something generic when the reality of it is considerably more specific. It means they have begun, consciously or not, to organize small decisions around the possibility of you not dramatically, not in ways that would be visible from the outside or that they would necessarily admit to if asked, but in the quiet, almost embarrassing specificity of genuine wanting. Choosing things, positions, presence in certain spaces, availability at certain times, with some portion of the motivation being the increased probability of contact with you. It means that when something happens to them, something good or something difficult or something interesting or something funny, there is a first impulse before any other impulse toward you, toward the specific experience of sharing it with you, toward the particular quality of what your response would be, which they have been cataloging with more attention than they would probably comfortably admit. It means that the future, when they think about it in any dimension that involves another person, keeps generating an image that contains you in it, not as a fantasy exactly, as a specific, a face, a presence, a particular unrepeatable way of being that they have decided without necessarily making the decision consciously they want in their future, rather than as a chapter that eventually closes. That is what wanting to be with you means in their interior experience right now. It is quite comprehensive. Now, I want to say something that complicates the picture slightly, because I would rather give you the whole thing than the portion that is simply satisfying to receive. This person is also scared, not of you, of the magnitude of what they are feeling in relation to you. There is a specific fear that accompanies wanting at this level of thoroughness, which is the fear of being that exposed, of having placed something as significant as their genuine wanting in a direction that could, in principle, not be reciprocated, of the specific vulnerability of being the one who wants more visibly, who has been overtaken more completely, who is in the less defended position. They are acutely aware of that position, and the awareness of it is producing a particular kind of hesitation that I want to name accurately, rather than either dismissing as unnecessary or amplifying into something that suggests they are not going to act on what they feel. The hesitation is real. The feeling underneath it is larger and more durable than the hesitation. What I am reading is someone who is in the process of working up to something, who has felt the full weight of what they want and is now in the specific, slightly uncomfortable negotiation with their own courage about what to do with that weight. The negotiation is close to its conclusion in favor of the courage. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, even just internally, even if the honest answer is complicated. Have you felt this? Not necessarily in the grand, obvious sense of someone making their wanting unmistakably clear, but in the smaller, subtler register of how they have been with you, the quality of attention I mentioned, the slight additional care in how they show up in your vicinity, the specific way your presence in a space seems to land on them differently than other presences land. Has some part of you registered what has been happening on their end? Perhaps without having let yourself fully name it or claim it, because naming it would require you to decide what you think about it, and deciding what you think about it would require a degree of vulnerability in your own direction that has not yet felt completely safe. Tell me in the comments what your honest answer to that is, because the reading is showing me that there is more parallel experience happening here than either of you is fully acknowledging to yourselves, let alone to each other. I want to speak to something specific about the nature of what has been building between you, because the reading is pointing toward it with a consistency that tells me it is important rather than incidental. This is not the wanting that comes from novelty. I want to be precise about that distinction because it matters enormously for what this means going forward. Novelty-based wanting has a specific feeling to it. It is bright and consuming, and it produces the sensation of certainty while being entirely dependent on the sustaining of a particular kind of not quite knowing. The moment full knowledge arrives, the moment the person becomes thoroughly understood rather than intriguingly partial, the wanting that was built on novelty begins to lose its grip. What I am reading here is built on something different. The wanting here has increased with knowing, has deepened rather than peaked and begun to recede. Each layer of you that this person has encountered, each additional dimension of your complexity or your honesty or your specific way of being in the world that has become visible to them over the course of whatever time you have had together has added to the wanting rather than providing the satiation that novelty-based wanting eventually requires. That is a significantly different and considerably more durable thing. They are not fascinated by the mystery of you in the way that resolves once the mystery does. They are drawn to the actuality of you, the real, known, continuing to reveal itself over time actuality. And that kind of wanting does not have a natural ceiling. Let me close with something that I have been holding since the beginning of this reading, because I wanted to make sure I had earned the right to say it by building toward it honestly rather than leading with it. You stole their heart, but I want to reframe that slightly before I leave you with it. You did not steal anything. Stealing implies taking something that did not belong to you, that was not wanted for you to have, that you acquired through some form of transgression. What actually happened is closer to the opposite. You showed up genuinely as yourself. You were real in a world where realness is rarer than it should be. You were present and warm where warmth was appropriate, and sharp where sharpness was true, and funny when something was actually funny, and quiet when quiet was more honest than sound. You were, in the most fundamental sense available to a human being, you. And this person's heart, encountering that, made its own decision without your orchestration, without your campaign, without you doing anything other than existing in the particular unrepeatable way that you exist. Their heart decided. You did not steal it. It gave itself. And the question now, the one that the reading is sitting with as we close, the one that belongs to you rather than to them, is simply this. What do you want to do with something that precious? Something freely given by someone who did not plan to give it, who tried in various small ways to hold on to it, who found in the end that holding on to it in your vicinity was simply not possible. That is yours now, Virgo. Handle it accordingly, with the same realness that caused it to be given in the first place, with the same unhurried, unperforming, genuinely yourself quality that got in before anyone had the chance to decide whether to allow it. That is all it has ever required from you. And it is, fortunately, exactly what you do naturally, without even trying.